Hey, hot tubbers. Welcome to the podcast Tub Talk with the Hot Tub Lady, recorded live here on this channel. I am your host, Jackie Johnson, and today we have a very special guest. His name is Jim Walz from Ideal Water Care. He's been on the show a couple of times, and today we're going to talk about the four principles of perfect water care. And if anybody could tell us about that, that is definitely going to be Jim. Let's bring him on now.
Hello, everybody.
Hey,
Glad you
Jim, how
guys
you
are
doing?
here.
You're here.
Doing good. Yes.
Doing good. Awesome. So I hope this sounds good. I hope everybody can hear us all right. If not, please let us know in the chat. Otherwise, we are just going to get started today. So how have you been?
Good. Actually, I just got back from the East Coast. I was in Maryland for about a week, and it was it's hot and humid there. Definitely different than where I live here in Colorado. I am not. I don't enjoy humidity at all. So
Yeah, it's I actually think it's been, here in South Dakota, I think it's been pretty humid here for what's going on, honestly. So, but yeah, it's been raining and still humid, which is just nuts in my opinion. I just
yeah.
You walk outside in the rain and it's still humid. So, well, let's get started today. So you've kind of coined this phrase, four principles of having clean, clear water. Tell me what that means, how we're going to get through that, and what we're talking about today.
All right. Sounds good. So a lot of times people always wonder, what does it actually take to have great water? And I've just simplified the process. And many retailers, in North America and Europe will talk about this, but they really don't categorize it to make it simple for consumers to understand and grasp. They look at, a lot of consumers look at water chemistry as something they struggle with. They really don't have to. And so those four principles are very quite basic, and they'll align with what, again, a lot of retailers will say. It's just nobody kind of puts it in a box and says, this is what you need to do. So the very first thing is obviously monitoring your water. So regardless whether you're using, one of our iCares or you're using test strips or any other type of monitoring service, um, you've got to know where your water stands before you can go make any adjustments or know that it's actually good. So that's principle number one, is just monitoring your water however you choose to do it. The second thing is to have good sanitation, which there are many different sanitation systems out there, whether you're using a saltwater, so we also have a saltwater system that allows you to take any hot tub and make it a saltwater hot tub. And but if somebody goes, no, I don't want to do salt water, or my hot tub manufacturer doesn't want me to do salt water, so be it. There's others that are out there. So you could use chlorine, you could use bromine, you could use a silver additive to kind of use it to help your mainline sanitizer. There's ozonators, there's UV systems, but in the end, it's about having good sanitation. And then the third principle is having good balance. So our soft skin spa product, obviously, one of the advantages to having soft skin spa is it will lock in and manage your pH and total alkalinity for you, so you don't have to be the mad scientist and try to figure things out. It just makes it very easy. And we can go into more detail as far as what that product can do. And then the fourth thing is really pre-care. So what are you doing before you drain your hot tub that prepares you for when you refill it, so you are starting as fresh as you possibly can, which obviously our product is called Hot Tub Scrub, which is a pre-drain and filter cleaner. So those are the four principles. All of our products are based off those four principles and making it the easiest way to manage your water. Now, obviously, those last three are, as far as our products are concerned, are more geared towards hot tubs, but the same principles are for pools. So in a pool, you've got to monitor your water. You got to know where you stand. You've got to have good sanitation. You've got to have balance to the water, and there are certain things that you need to do before you go winterize that pool. Um, so next spring, when you go to open it, it's as good as it can actually be. So again, those four principles are across the board, whether it's on a pool, a hot tub, or a swim spa. And we can go into more detail on each one of those as you want to, Jackie.
Oh, and we definitely will. That's and you guys that are here on the stream with us, please ask a few questions that we're going to stop in the stream real quick, say hello to everyone who's here, and then we are going to start with monitoring. That's going to be our number one topic. So, we've got Katie here. Katie is Hi, watching from Washington. Recently found your channel while preparing a hot springs hot tub delivery at the end of August. That's awesome. Congratulations. I'm gonna blow you out, Jim. Um, where's my horn? No horn, but we got confetti, and then we've also got Arlene Jerry now. Jerry now. Sorry, I know I killed that. Awaiting my new hot tub on Wednesday. Woohoo! That's exciting for you as well. Uh, get some good information here, so that's fantastic. And we got Kayla here saying what? Completely frozen. Hello, hello.
I can hear you now.
Okay, let's get that over there. And the stream froze, but okay, I think we're good now. Sorry about that, guys. We froze up there for a second. So let's talk about this guy monitoring. That's your favorite. That's kind of my claim to fame with you. And but let's just talk about it. Let's talk about what you mean when you say monitoring. You guys ask questions if you have any about the iCare specifically, or if you just have questions about monitoring in general, because monitoring is a super big part of water. Just owning a hot tub, owning a swimming pool, any piece of that is probably the besides cleaning your filter, and I am going to get shirts made that say clean your filter. But besides cleaning a filter, I do believe that monitoring is the most important step into taking care of your hot tub, because if you don't know what you're doing, you can really get in trouble. So tell us what the iCare is, what it does, all those good things.
Okay, so the iCare obviously is going to monitor your water, and it does it differently than other forms of monitoring. So obviously, we're going to be looking at your sanitation, regardless of your sanitation. So iCare works with saltwater, chlorine, bromine. Again, it recognizes ozone, UVC, and silver-based products. The only thing it doesn't work with is biguanide, which there's not a whole lot of biguanide out there anymore. But the way we're looking at the sanitation is through what's called ORP. We're literally looking at the oxidation of the water. So when you go add, let's say, chlorine or bromine, or you've got your conversion of salt over to chlorine, those are all oxidizers. And so we're physically looking at the oxidation of the water, which is the most accurate way of testing for a sanitizer or lack thereof. The neat thing with ORP is it will recognize where the pH stands. So we're also checking the pH. And when you, and I'm sure Jackie, you've told your fans, about how the pH ultimately affects the effectiveness of your sanitizer. But to give you an idea, if you were trying to maintain 3 parts per million of your sanitizer and you had a 7.5 pH, all would be good. But the minute that pH goes from 7.5 to 7.8, you literally lose 2/3 of your sanitation. So that 1 part per million, even though it's reading it as 1 part per million, is only effective at the level of 1 part per million. And that's the thing that ppm just it can't recognize. Whereas the iCare will calculate all those things through the AI software. And the AI software it's brilliant. It's similar to Nest, so it will literally learn the effectiveness of the products you're adding. And so if you go get good stuff, it's going to tell you to add less. You go get the cheap stuff, it's going to have you add more. And the advantage to adding less is actually better than more.
Right. Because
And
you're not
by
adding
having
total
less in the
dissolved
water,
solids.
you're not increasing your TDS or your total dissolved solids at the same rate. So you don't have to drain and refill more often. But the neat
So,
thing, outside of looking for the sanitizer, looking at the pH, we also look at the temperature of the water. And by looking at the temperature of the water, it's a great indicator whether there's something wrong. Let's say this is in a hot tub. If there's something wrong with your hot tub, it's going to drop below a certain temperature. And we can customize these parameters however somebody sees fit. So let's say they keep the water at 100 degrees. I recommend to go in their settings, go 5 degrees above and 5 degrees below in their settings. So if it ever drops below 95 in that scenario, there's something wrong with your hot tub. And the number one thing that I've seen over the decades is a dirty filter. A dirty filter is the number one thing that causes that hot tub or that temperature to drop. Um, so I know you started saying something about clean your filters, but you got to clean your filters or filter. I mean, however you do it, that's the number one thing. But the other thing is, let's say that it's not a dirty filter, it was the breaker that tripped, or the heater that went out, or a sensing device that wasn't reading correctly. All of those things will cause that temperature to drop. And iCare literally has saved hot tubs out there that potentially could have froze, but because they were sent a notification, they knew their temperature actually dropped.
Right, and it's good.
So
And I have had customers call and say, "Hey, I'm on vacation. Can you go check that?" I want to step back to the ORP for just a second. So I understand that it's better, and the people who own the iCare understand that ORP is better. Could you just figure it out on your own, or is there a test strip out there that actually measures ORP versus sanitation level? Just out of
there,
curiosity.
yeah, not that I've seen. So if there is, I've never seen it. But ORP is the commercial way of testing for your water. So a commercial pool that is highly more regulated, that's
Hmm.
exactly how they will not rely on parts per million on a commercial pool or a commercial hot tub. So all of your health clubs, your city pools, your community pools, they're all testing by ORP, or at least they should. So you really can't. And there's I use that example of the ppm at 3 and the pH at 7.5 going to 7.8. That's an example. There's not a direct correlation that says, okay, here's a chart of ppm and here's a chart of ORP and here's where they cross. There's no such thing that's out there. There's close and they give you some references, but there's not a direct correlation. So to answer your question, you really can't take a test strip and be able to determine truly what your sanitizer is or the effectiveness of it.
So awesome. We got Maddie over here asking some really great questions. Kayla, I'm going to get back to you as well. But Maddie B says, if I know I will need sanitation, and he's got chlorine in parentheses, after people used it, can I put in before the eye care tells me to, or should I wait until the eye care tells me to put the chlorine in?
That's a great question. So I would tell you to wait until the eye care tells you to, because the eye care needs to learn. And so if you're constantly preempting those moves, you're better off letting it learn. So a lot of people don't know this, but some of the soft behind, in the background, the software is we will look at. Uh, we need four tests, and we're testing every hour, which nobody else in the industry in this category tests every hour. But we need four consecutive tests going in the wrong direction before we're going to go tell them to go dose anything. And the reason being is because we don't want somebody to have a knee jerk reaction and say, okay, oh, I tested it, I need to go add something. And all too often, when that happens with test strips, they add too much of one product when they didn't give time for that entire water to kind of settle and cycle. So we want to see four measurements going in the wrong direction. And your eye care will actually tell you the direction that it's going. So you can look at this on a day, week, or month view. And if anybody out there that has the eye care right now, I'm going to call it the sun and the planets that are kind of on that app. And the little plants have arrows in them. And if the arrows are sitting horizontal, it's stable. If it's pointed down, then it's in a downward trend. If it's pointed up, it's in an upward trend. And that goes true with your pH, your temperature, your ORP, and your TDS. So your TDS is also another great thing, indicator for when you should be draining and refilling your hot tub, or if you get to a saturation point on your pool, of when to lower the water level down and then add some fresh water. So if you're utilizing chlorine or bromine, the scientific measure is 2,000 parts per million. So at 2,000 parts per million on a hot tub, using chlorine or bromine, that is your scientific measure to turn around and drain and refill your hot tub. Rather than the rule of thumb that's in the industry that says go drain and refill 3 to 4 times a year by most spa manufacturers. And then, like on saltwater hot tubs, even though they're saying, you can get a year out of that salt water, well, you could, but again, scientific, that's a good rule of thumb, but that's not a scientific measure. So on a saltwater hot tub, you're at 3,300 total combined of your parts per million of TDS in salt. And so, like Jackie, on your hot tub, Hot Springs suggests to keep it at 1,750 parts per million of
Right.
salt. And you, over time of you adding pH up, pH down, staining scales, soft skin spot, whatever you add to it, you slowly increase your TDS. Well, that TDS again is a combination between all of the total dissolved solids and the salt in your particular hot tub.
So, and then
So
like on
at
mine, I've actually adjusted the settings so it's actually lower than that because I know what the total dissolved solids are and what the salt is. So I've actually made my adjustments a little bit more. And heading back to, you were talking about the AI technology. So the thing that I see and the biggest mistake I see people making is I'm going to pull up my pH chart right here, and this is for a month. But you can see where it had a little drop there. And what people will do is they'll actually have it on the day view, and mine's not going to be a good example, but it'll drop for 30 minutes or something, and it might be your sanitizer or something like that, and people literally sit there and watch it to see when it's testing again, and it'll make a little drop. So for example, today I had a little spike in my ORP, and this is the day view. So that is absolutely nothing. But what people will do is they'll take this and they'll screenshot it. They will send that to me and they'll be like, "It's not working. It's not working. I have to add chlorine." And I'm like, "What did it tell you to do?" So if you go down here and you click the little dots down here in the bottom, it's going to tell you what to add. And sometimes your readings are going to drip and or go up and go down, but it's not telling you to do anything. And that goes back to where you need the four consecutive readings before it asks you to do something. So mine's actually telling me to shock my hot tub right now, which mine's a saltwater hot tub, so I'm just going to hit the boost button. But that is one of the things. It is really, really smart, you guys. And if you let it do what it needs to do, it is going to take all the work out of it. But if you're second guessing it or you're trying to do more than needs to happen, you're just going to drive yourself crazy. And if I could give you guys
Mhm.
any advice at all, I had a customer the other day and he was testing his pH 7 different ways. He had 7 different ways he was testing his pH, and he was using test strips and he was using drops and he was using iCare and he was using a pH meter, and he had all these different ways he was testing his pH, and he couldn't get them to come together. You're never going to get them to come together. Pick a testing system and test it once a day if you're not using the iCare. iCare is the only thing I know that'll test it once a year, but it's also taking that, or once an hour. But it's also taking that information and combining it all together with everything else that it knows, and it's not having you make an adjustment every hour. We can't have the mistake anybody makes is they're constantly playing mad scientists, and they'll put in some chemical, test it with their test strip, and like, oh, that didn't adjust it, and they'll either add more or add the opposite of what they just did. Give your chemicals time to work. They need 24 hours to do what they need to do, and it all comes together. But if I see any major mistake that people are making is they're over testing and overreacting to the test. If you stick with this guy here and follow the instructions, you're going to have crystal clear water, I promise. So, you got anything you want to add to that? There's quite a few questions over here, but
Yeah. So I do want to address one thing, like you had mentioned about some people using test strips and they're comparing against the iCare and they're comparing against bringing a water sample into a retail location. And all of those tests ultimately were different. And I had a gentleman that thought the iCare was not reading the pH correctly. And he tested it with 3 different bottles of test strips. So he had different brands, 3 different, expiration dates, and his test on his test strips kept saying that it was 7.2 or 7.3, depending on the test strip, whereas iCare was actually reading it at 7.7. So he was like, yeah, the iCare is off. I've got three other tests, and um, they're all showing lower settings. And I said, well, if you'd like to do kind of a cheater way of figuring out whether, what's actually right, they make bottled water that they're advertising that has the pH. So I've seen one that is 8.8 and I've seen one that's 7.2. And so I had this gentleman, I said, if you happen to have any of this water, go put your eye care in some of that water. And he chose the 8.8, and the eye care went up to 8.8. And I said, just curious, take your test strips and go put them in that 8.8 bottled water. And sure enough, he was reading 7.2 and 7.3 on those test strips. Those test
Hmm.
strips didn't change. And so the eye care, he goes, you know what? Your eye care is actually right. And the test strips were wrong.
That's
But
awesome.
because he had three tests versus one, he was assuming the eye care was wrong. And I said, if it's wrong, we'll get it back in check and we'll make it right. So that's just a nice little way of kind of double checking the eye care um, to make sure that it is testing correctly. Obviously, there are calibration kits that you can get from us to be able to recalibrate it. And you do want to recalibrate your sensors about every 6 to 12 months just to keep them on point.
So, okay, that's a really good point, and I like the bottled water. That's a. I'm gonna start having people do that for sure. So we're gonna answer a couple questions here. Kayla, does the iCare have a monthly fee to use the app?
Great question. So we do not have a monthly fee. So once you purchase the unit, you do not have a monthly fee. I know there's others out there that are charging, $30, $40 a month, and I just I don't know why they're having to charge that. But it's that to me that would get very expensive to be able to have to pay $30 to $40 a month to be able to do that. Now I know some of the companies that are no longer around, they were charging $100 a year, um, but we don't charge anything. So you buy the unit initially. It has a 2-year warranty, and all of our warranty now is centralized, and we ship out on a weekly basis on anything that's got to be taken care of under warranty.
Yeah, and you guys' customer service is absolutely outstanding. It's a little time consuming because the service centers is in overseas. Where are they at? Europe, someplace. I mean,
Yes, in Europe. Yeah.
so they speak English incredibly well. They're just on a different time zone. But you'll send it in. They'll look at your eye care. They'll tell you exactly what's going on, and then you'll be dealing with someone here in the states. But their customer service is by far some of the best customer service I have dealt with. Along the lines of the subscription fee, I'm actually testing another water care monitor right now, and it does have a subscription fee and it quit working on me. So it just flat out is done. So I will eventually have a comparison video of the two and maybe a video on that itself. But just so you guys know, I still this is the number one product that I recommend for manually testing your or not manually testing your hot tub. If you're looking for peace of mind, that's definitely the way to go. Maddie B says, "Is there an ORP level too high to enter the hot tub, like 10 part per million?"
Oh, interesting. So the guidelines, and it's just a number. So if you were using just chlorine or bromine or salt and no auxiliary type of sanitizers, your range typically would be between 650 and 750. Now, if you have, soft skin spa that has silver, you've got a silver cartridge, you've got ozone or UVC, then you could lower that number to 500 to 650. But to answer your question about is it too high, if it were above, I would say 900, then I would probably tell you, don't get in that body of water. But it would take a lot
Mm-hmm.
for it to get there. And if for some reason you do get the sanitation too high, you can open up the cover, run the jets, and that will slowly dissipate your sanitation level.
So yeah, I mean it's you can get that sanitizer down way quicker than people think you can. People kind of freak out over that, and especially if it's a sunny day. Turn the lights on, or turn the lights on, turn the jets on, and open the cover. You'd be amazed how quick that sanitation will come down.
Mhm.
We got Jeff B here. Welcome to the stream, Jeff. Good to see you. It's been a while. The eye care is the best thing. The eye care is the best thing for the hot tub. Just makes it so easy. I do have a question. The first 2 months I charged the eye care. The charge lasts 3 months. Now it says, now it's lasting 2 weeks. Is that normal? Is there anything I can do?
Yes. Okay. So I'm glad you brought this up. So on the battery recharging steps, so the app within the wizard will give directions on how to recharge the battery. And it is very specific, but we've had people to where they've done it before that notification happens, which that notification gets pushed out once you reach 20% on your battery life or lower. So if you do it beforehand, or you've let it drain to nothing and now you're not getting any communication, then sometimes people don't see exactly how to go recharge. So the way you go to recharge is you take it out of the body of water, you completely dry it off, and then you're going to pop the top with that little screwdriver, and you're going to let it sit for no less than 12 hours before you go plug it in for 8 hours. Now, it's really no different than your cell phone. If your cell phone gets wet and then you go plug it in, it'll actually degrade the battery. So, in this particular case, more than likely the battery's been degraded because moisture had gotten into the battery port. Now, the good thing is, if and you can contact us directly, but if there's a online claim form that we're basically going to ask for your name, what's called your UUID and serial number. Now, if you don't have the original box with the UUID and the serial number, it is within your app. So if you go to the app, you hit what I'm going to call the bow tie, and then you're going to go to settings and you're going to go to my iCare. And the my iCare, you'll see your UUID and your serial number. So, Jacque, even though they are put on the bottoms of those and underneath the lids,
Yeah, it looks. I
sometimes
did.
they fade away. So they are within the app.
So where is it at on
And
the
then,
app
so
so I can
anyway,
show people?
yep. So you go to the bow tie, you go to the gear setting at the top, you go to my eye care.
Which is the little person at the bottom.
No, so the gear on the top first.
Yep.
Yep. And then my eye care.
And then my eye care.
Yep. Very
So
bottom
there at the
one.
bottom, and there you guys can see it's got. Now you guys can all
Your
file
serial
claims on my
number.
eye care.
Yeah. So there's the serial number, the UUID. So all that information is programmed in there. You send us that information. We're actually going to, our customer service department's going to go look at that remotely, and they're going to see that, okay, it was working, it was working. No, now it's not working correctly. And they will give you the next steps of what's going to happen. So let's say in your case, the entire unit's got to be replaced, then the entire unit will be replaced and we'll ship it out. Again, that's all part of the 2 year warranty. Just be careful the next time to make sure you follow those directions. Take it out of the water, dry it off, pop the top, let it sit for 12 hours, and then go plug it in for at least 8 hours. This is another thing that some people were doing, and they said they couldn't get a full charge, is they would plug it in, and as soon as they saw that light go green on the eye care, they unplugged it and put it back in the body of water. Well, that light turning green just says or means that it's above 20%. So again, just let it, be plugged in for at least 8 hours. And what most people do is they take it out in the morning, they dry it off, they pop the top, they let it set, and then when they later on that night, they'll go plug it in after it's sat there for 12 hours, and they'll let it charge overnight. The next morning, they go put it back into the body of water. When you do that, there are little black caps that or shipping caps with little sponges. In that scenario where you're just recharging, you do not have to use or put those caps back on. But if you were going to winterize your pool and it was going to be out of the water for months, then you would go put those caps back on.
I didn't know that. That's a
Yeah.
new one.
Yeah. Great question.
um,
I'm glad you brought it up.
so that's awesome. And then, so would your advice be for Jeff to actually file a claim, or you think he's going to be okay for a little bit and then file a claim?
No, he needs to file a claim.
Okay. So Jeff, I hope you got that, and you want him to go to the on what website would you like him to go
So
to?
If he contacts either you or me, I'll just send him a link, and that way he doesn't have to go search for it. So if you email me at info@idealwatercare.com or jim@idealwatercare.com, I'll send you the link and we'll get you taken care of.
Yeah, so I'm going to change the scene here. So this is Jim's website, and it's Ideal Water Care, and then you just want to do info@idealwatercare.com. So if you want to, Jeff, if you want to reach out to Jim there, he will get that taken care of. Again, find your UUID and all that in your app, and but he will get that taken care of for you. And again, you guys, I'm telling you, their customer service is outstanding. I've never seen anything better. Katie's on here. She has a question. She goes, newbie question: does the iCare help with saltwater systems too? If so, do you just leave the iCare in the water 24/7? I know the answer, but
So
I'll let you
yes,
go.
yep. So yes, it does work with salt water, and you would leave it in there 24/7. So it's going to test it every hour that it's in there. If for some reason people take it out, the app knows that the eye care is out of the water. It sends you a notification saying, "Hey, I'm out of the water. Go put me back in the water."
So, Katie, in my opinion, the iCare with salt systems is the absolute easiest hot tub care that you can possibly ask for. So that is absolutely fantastic. And then Crypto Truth just says, just want to let you know you were a great hot tub lady. Thank you, Crypto Truth. Appreciate that. Kayla has dropped the link in the chat, info at Ideal Water Care or Jim at Ideal Water Care. So now you're actually out there. So
Now
thank
I'm
you,
gonna,
Kayla. Appreciate that. So we
yeah,
got that going. So since we're here on the website, I think I want to move on to sanitizing. Let's talk about that for a bit.
okay. So as you'll see on the website, you've got the ideal saltwater system, and there are many different saltwater systems out there. They're all just a little bit different. So the thing with a saltwater system, the ones that we manufacture, it's a system that the cell itself, so that the longevity of the salt cell is all determined by it's a metal called ruthenium. Ruthenium is put onto those cells, and the thicker that ruthenium, the longer that cell lasts. So that's the cell she's holding up right there. And the neat thing about this cell is it not only has two platelets, but the platelets are honeycomb. So one of the things that happens with salt cells over time, it's either the metal wears off because it's a very thin layer. Those are typically the ones that are disposable that you replace on a regular basis, or calcium builds up on those platelets. And calcium will shut down a salt system, and you can clean the cell with like a vinegar or an acid solution. And when you do that, then you go ahead and put it back in the water. The neat thing about the ideal saltwater system is when that is in the water, because you can physically put it in your hand and you can see it in the water. One way you know it's working, if it's on. So on a salt system, you're running it um, at so many hours per day, and different manufacturers cycle in different ways. So the way the ideal water salt system works is, let's say you're going to go run it for 8 hours. It runs for 8 hours and then it shuts off. But before it shuts off, it does what's called a reverse polarity. So it's designed to kick the calcium off that cell. So whereas others will cycle, let's say that you were going to do it on a hot spring. Hot spring does it. Let's say you're going to run for 12 hours. It doesn't do it for 12 consistent hours. It does it for every other hour for that 24-hour period. So it's off on, off on, off on every hour. Again, that's if you're running it for 12 hours during a given day. So people often ask on the eye care, how come I see it? My sanitizer's high, and then the next hour it goes down to zero, and then the next hour it's high. And that's just because iCare is testing every hour. The salt system potentially is going off and on, and it recognizes that. Now, with the ideal saltwater system, obviously it's going to be doing good, and then once it shuts off, you'll see it start to float back down. So our salt cells are designed to last 1 to 3 years depending on runtime. So if I was going to run that salt cell 24/7, it's going to last a year based on the amount of ruthenium we've put on those platelets. Now, if I'm running it for 8 hours a day, that's going to last for 3 years. And that's really what determines it's all about runtime and the salt concentration in the water. So if your manufacturer wants you to maintain 1,750 parts per million of salt, the ideal water care system will turn around and run at 1,750 perfectly fine. I've actually ran it all the way down to 1,100. Um, and some people want to keep it up at 2,000 or 2,200. And the salt cell at that point, if I'm running at 2,200 parts per million of salt versus 1,100, I have half the amount of salt. So at 1,100, I have to run it twice as long. And it's just a mathematical equation when you're dealing with saltwater systems, and that holds true with pool saltwater systems also. But those are actually a lot higher. Most of those are running at 3,000 or higher.
So that's really good information. I know you're working on it, but um, you can work that with like a smart plug at this point, right? Have you got that?
Yes. So on my particular system, and this would hold true with a hot tub with a circulating pump that's running 24/7. The way that I regulate it, which I happen to have a hot tub that's got a 24-hour circulating pump. So on my saltwater system, I literally can look at my iCare, determine whether or not I have enough conversion in my saltwater system. I have hooked into my home automation. So I happen to use Lutron. It's a simple smart plug, same plug that you would use to control a light in your house. And with those smart plugs, you can control them to say, I want the light to come on at 8 o'clock at night and I want it to turn off at 4 o'clock in the morning. Well, I do the exact same thing with my salt system. I just happen to turn it on at 6 a.m. and I turn it off at 2 p.m. And if for some reason that wasn't enough runtime, I can turn around and change my schedule on my spark plug to go, okay, I'm going to run from 6 a.m. till, you know, 3 p.m. Or if it was too much, I change my schedule. Like you had mentioned, your boost function with a smart plug, if I go turn it on, the smart plug, the very next day it rotates around, it goes back to its normal schedule. So it's the equivalent to you doing your boost function. Now, if I don't have a circulating pump, and that's the great thing about the ideal saltwater system, is you can install it one of three ways. And the kit includes everything you need. So in that scenario, the only thing it would not include is the smart plug, because somebody may be using Lutron, somebody may be using ones they found online. I don't know which smart plugs they like using, so I keep that out of the equation. But they can use any smart plug. Now, if they have a two-speed pump, there's a different wiring harness that you can choose that allows you to unplug the two-speed pump, plug in the wiring harness, plug your pump back in, plug the saltwater system back in. So in that scenario, the way you control your runtime is by adjusting your filter cycles, which kind of go hand in hand anyway. You want it to be filtering and cleaning the water when you're sanitizing. So if I wanted to go run it for 8 hours a day, I would run, in most two-speed pumps in their programming, they have you run two 4-hour cycles on a 12-hour time clock. And I know that may be too technical, but it's really not that difficult. As soon as you look at your filter cycles, you're going to know whether or not you're filtering, you know, 2 hours a day or 8 hours a day. And you would just adjust accordingly so you have enough conversion of salt over to chlorine. And we can
So
help
the
you through all that stuff.
so the question, I mean, so you're selling this individual salt system, is can you put it on any hot tub, or I mean, what's your advice there?
So so you virtually can put it on any hot tub. Now the trick is people knowing what makes a saltwater hot tub versus one that is not promoting that way. And there's really two things. So the first thing is Viton seals. And you may not know what a Viton seal is, but your retailer or the manufacturer will know. I don't know
I
of a
don't.
manufacturer. Sorry?
I said I don't know.
You don't know. So Viton seals were incorporated. I don't know of a spa manufacturer today that doesn't use Viton seals. It's just one of those things that has become the norm based on what people were doing decades ago. Number two is a titanium heater, which a lot of manufacturers have gone over to a titanium heater. But if for some reason they haven't, when you look at the scale of different metals, you have titanium and then you have the nickel inco alloy that is used on what used to be used and is still used on some heaters. Those two metals literally are right next to each other on the hardness scale of all metals. So even though titanium will last longer, it's not as much as what people believe it to be. But let's say that you put the saltwater system on and you're running, 2,000 parts per million of salt, and that heater goes bad. Well, you can replace that heater with a titanium heater. So that's one scenario. The other scenario is just run your salt levels lower. If you wanted to run your salt levels down to 11 or 1200, it's not going to affect that heater any more than chlorine or bromine would. Because when you look at chlorine and bromine, that's sodium dichlor. Sodium is the salt. The dichlor is the sanitizer. So you're adding salt to that water even when you're using granular chlorine or tablet chlorine. And
You're
it's
probably
never
adding
going to,
more than you would be if it was a natural
you
salt
probably,
system.
you
Because
will.
you're so at 11 or 1200 part per million, are you getting a substantial? Are you getting a good enough sanitizer level? I mean, are you getting your 450 to 600 ORP chlorine on that?
Yes, you would just have to run it longer. So let's
Okay,
say that, so like on my hot tub, it's 500 gallons. I'm running about 1,800 parts per million of salt. So if I'm running for 8 hours and all of a sudden I drop down to, for this simple example, I'll say I drop down to half and I'm down at 900 parts per million. Instead of running at 8 hours, I'm going to be running at 16 hours because there's only so many salt molecules that are getting converted between those platelets. When I double the number of salt particles, I'm doubling the amount of sanitation
gotcha.
that I'm
Okay, that makes
converting.
sense to me.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense to me. So, all right, hang in there, guys. We're gonna circle back. You have a lot of eye care questions, but we're gonna come back to them. But I want to get through all the stuff that we wanted to talk about. Let's talk about balancing. I'm gonna switch this over to so. Where's the soft skin spa on the? All right, soft skin spa. Let's talk about that.
Okay. So a soft skin spa is designed to make it easy for consumers to deal with a lot of different things. So the first primary function of soft skin spa when it was created was to make the water feel soft, um, similar to how salt water feels. So for those people that have salt water, they're not going to all of a sudden go, okay, I'm adding soft skin spa, it's even more soft. You're really not going to see the benefits of that. But for everybody who's using chlorine or bromine, you would see and feel the difference of that softness of the water. The second thing it does is it gives a layer of protection to the hot tub, the equipment, and the consumer's body from the harshness of chemicals, similar to how Rain-X works on a windshield. So if you've ever used Rain-X on a windshield, water just sheds off of that. So by giving that layer of protection, calcium cannot attach to the metals, including salt cells, including like a pump seal or a heater. So it lengthens the life of your equipment in that case. When you're dealing with your own body, when you get out of the hot tub, you don't smell like chlorine because the chlorine never got into your skin in the first place. And this isn't something that, just like Rain-X, when you put it on, you can't tell there's something on there because it's crystal clear on your windshield. You can't even tell that it's protecting your body other than when you get out. You don't smell like chlorine. You don't have that dry, itchy skin. The third thing it does is it, through pH buffers, is it locks in your pH and total alkalinity. And so by locking that in through the pH buffers, and on that note, so when you're incorporating, and this is incorporated into the iCare, but when you go add your soft skin spa, you will see your pH go up for about 24 hours, and then it turns around and levelizes. And it does that through those pH buffers. Now, the things that we've added in, let's say, the last year or so, we've eliminated all phosphates. There are no phosphate ingredients
That's a
in our
big
product.
deal.
And a lot of manufacturers about 5 years ago switched over to phosphate based ingredients. So the biggest culprit is stain and scale. You add
Mm-hmm.
stain and scale to the water, you're adding phosphates to the water. Whereas by having soft skin spa, you no longer need stain and scale unless you're extremely hard water, which I personally, I'm on a well. I still don't use stain and scale. So then we've
Because you're
also
using
added,
soft skin spa. If you
correct.
weren't using soft skin spa, you would have to use stain and scale.
That is correct. That is
Because
correct. Yep.
those of you who have issues with metals and hardness, this is a really good product to add to that, and especially without the phosphates. I highly recommend you go that route. And those of you who are on salt systems, you need to go that route. So, and it makes the water feel absolutely amazing. I mean, it really, really is pretty good stuff. So,
Yep. So the
so
other thing is it does have silver nitrate. So by having silver nitrate, similar to what's in those mineral sticks, um, by having silver in there, you don't have to have as much sanitizer in the water. We also have a phosphate remover. So the phosphate remover ingredient is a maintenance dose of phosphate remover. If you have an issue with phosphates, this is not going to take care of it. You got to take care of that problem
right.
first, and then this will maintain it
This is
through
a
the
maintenance
dosing
product,
of
is
that.
not a product. It's not a fixing product for sure.
Correct.
On that lines, Richard Bolden. Hey, Richard, good to see you. Haven't seen you in a while. It says, if I have the silver ion cartridge in the filter area of my saltwater envoy, should I use the soft skin spa with or without the silver?
It's not going to hurt if you had both, but you don't need both. So I would use one or the other.
So do you?
One more time.
Okay, we're back.
Okay. So I sorry I missed your I didn't hear your question.
So you sell both. You sell a soft skin spa with silver and soft skin spa without silver.
No, I only sell it with silver now.
Oh, okay. Okay. So
Yeah.
I was confused. I got taken down a rabbit hill there. So
Yeah.
you,
So the you had mentioned about having using soft skin spa with with saltwater hot tubs.
mm-hmm,
The To me, one of the biggest factors is the fact that it is going to manage your pH. So
mm-hmm.
historically, saltwater hot tubs have a high level of pH, 7.8 to 8.2. It's just the nature of salt water. And so you're constantly having to drive down that pH. Well, if you're utilizing soft skin spa with the saltwater hot tub, it'll actually manage your pH. So internal system does not have to have or does not have to run as long because you're having to overcompensate because of the pH being higher.
Yeah, I mean that is a byproduct of the salt system. Is your pH is constantly climbing. So that does that. I didn't even sell that benefit of soft skin spa. I just think it's a really, really good product. And we are at the point now that we do put it in uh, every new hot tub that we sell. They get a bottle of this just to get started on it, because it is that good of a product, and we do highly recommend it. And everything we're talking about today, guys, there is descriptions and links in the show notes or in the description of the YouTube video, but you can definitely check everything out there. That's definitely a way to go. We do have a lot of questions on the iCare yet, so I do want to get through all the other stuff that we have. The next step that you have is care, and I think you meant pre-care, but I have care.
Pre-care,
So
yes. Yeah. So it's all the things you need to do before you drain your hot tub. So when you refill it, you're starting off with the best water you possibly can. So I'll make this quick so we can answer the questions. So when you look at plumbing line cleaners that are out there, they're all detergent based. And so when I developed this product, I went to both consumers and retailers and said, "What do you like about your plumbing line cleaner, and what don't you like about your plumbing line cleaner?" And so the things they liked about it was the fact that it would foam up and it would get all the debris out of the plumbing lines. And when I would ask the question, "What don't you like about it?" they said, "Well, I don't like the cleanup process because all that gunk is sitting on top of the foam. And when I go to drain my hot tub, all of it sticks to the sides of the hot tub." So when I went to our chemist and said, "Okay, this is what people like, this is what they don't like," our chemist knew right off right off the top. He goes, well, don't use a detergent, go use a surfactant. So a surfactant is still going to foam up, but it's a different type of foam. It's a lighter foam, and that's really where the value of plumbing line cleaners are, is the foam. The foam lifts the stuff up and off the sides of the walls. But the thing um, with the detergent you don't resolve is all that stuff floating on top. Now, again, sticks to the sides of the hot tub. So our second ingredient is hydrogen peroxide. So hydrogen peroxide actually consumes that stuff, which would typically be on the top of the foam, keeps it in solution. So when you go to drain your hot tub, it's not sticking to the side of the hot tub. It also is cleansing your plumbing lines. So a detergent gets rid of the biofilm, and that's really the skin, but that skin was created by an organism or bacteria in the first place. So I could get rid of the slime, but I didn't take care of my problem. Well, with hydrogen peroxide, it's actually going after that organism that is creating the skin in the first place. So it's twofold. One, it's going to the very source. Number two, it's making the cleanup process much, much easier. And then on a side note, you can use it as a filter cleaner, but it needs to be used in this way. You need to take the filter or filters out, hose them off, and then put them into the body of water and use your hot tub like a big washing machine. If you were to take hot tub scrub and go put it in a 5 gallon bucket and soak your filters, it's not going to work. It needs that agitation to go clean those filters.
But man, does it work. It's, in my opinion, it is the absolute best filter cleaner that is out on the market today. And again, guys, I got a bottle here. Um, I've used a ton of scrubs. I mean, and you guys, if you had a clue how many people send me tub scrubs and tub cleaners and want me try to use them and check them out, this is the one, you guys. This one is definitely it. Where sometimes it's a little hard to get a hold of, but I think you've got that situation pretty well taken care of, and you can definitely go to Jim's website, which is down below Ideal Water Care. But you've got it, you're shipping it out, and
Yes. So what Jackie's referring to is when we made those original bottles, the cap that you're seeing in your video, that's a non-vented cap. So what ends up happening because of the high levels of hydrogen peroxide, the temperatures, all of that stuff ships from Colorado. So we're at a higher elevation. We're technically 1,200 feet higher than Denver. And so when it gets to ships to different parts of the country, it will leak. So we started putting it in Ziploc bags, and if for some reason it does leak and it doesn't get you the right way, we want you to contact us. We'll send you another bottle. We want to make it right. We want to do the right thing, and we will. So if it's our fault, it's our fault. But going forward, when we go through our next production run, that cap will be a vented cap. As a matter of fact, I've got caps galore everywhere, in my office, and I'm
this has been a
testing
weekly
all of these
conversation
different
with
caps.
Jim and I.
Yeah,
Because I love his
just make
product. I
sure.
absolutely love his product. I think it's the best product out there on the market today. We did have a little bit of a packaging issue, but we're on it. And we do have it. It's just in the back room on a shelf in Ziploc baggies. So you do have to ask for it at our store. But it is a phenomenal product. I mean, it cleans. I've been through a bazillion of them, but this particular product cleans the lines, cleans the filters, and the best part is you don't have this icky, sticky, yucky residue afterwards that you would literally have to scrape off the hot tub when you drain it. You hose it down and you go. It's really really good. If you guys are looking for a good filter or a good tub cleaner, hot tub scrub is definitely it. And you do want, I would get your hands on some now because the fall is coming pretty quick, and that's when you want to drain, clean, and refill your hot tub for the whole season. So we actually recommend, and it's just time to start thinking about it, is sometime between Halloween and Thanksgiving. In our market, we get colder faster than most people do. A lot of places you can go between Thanksgiving and Christmas. But in our market, we do recommend that you drain, clean, and refill and get ready for the winter sometime between Halloween and Thanksgiving, because that's coming. So it's a good idea to have that around. And so you can put it, I mean, you can just put this in your dirty water before you drain it, and it does all the cleaning. So versus draining the hot tub, filling it back up, putting this in, and draining it again, it's a resource saver and a time saver. So This is
And
it, you guys.
and on that note, it does work better when the water's hot. So keep the water hot, and then use the hot tub scrub.
Gotcha. So, and then if you're draining your old hot tub, then that's a good way. That definitely makes a difference. So sorry about that, guys. Didn't mean to hit my microphone. We're gonna very quickly talk about filtration. What do you have to say about filtration? Because it is
So
important. If you guys don't have filtration and circulation, all the stuff we're talking about here doesn't matter.
yeah, so when you look at the things that are at least within our company that are within our control, because all of our products are based off those four principles of monitoring the water. That's iCare. Sanitation is the saltwater system. Balance is soft skin spa, and pre-care or care is the hot tub scrub. Now, the two things that are not within our ability to help you, and it comes down to the product that you chose to purchase, are, to Jackie's point, are good filtration and circulation. So, regardless whether it's a hot tub or a pool, you've got to have good circulation and good filtration. You can go add as much as you want to the water, but if you don't circulate enough and you don't filter enough, then it's all for nothing. So make sure that you're filtering enough and make sure you're keeping your filter or filters clean.
So, and that's clean your filters, clean your filters, clean your filters, clean your filters. If you guys never get anything from me, clean your filters. They got to be cleaned once a month, the minimum once a month. Um,
Mhm.
clean your filters. That's number one call every day of the week is my hot tub's not working. When's the last time you cleaned your filter? Oh, about 6 months ago. Clean your filters. If you don't have good filtration, I don't care what system you're on, whether it's salt, chlorine, bromine, hydrogen peroxide, straight bleach, it's not going to work. You've got to have good filtration. So, and please don't use straight bleach in your hot tub. And then circulation. That's another really big part of your water's got to be moving. So, I mean, throw in your 2 cents on that, and
Yeah. So regardless whether you have a 24-hour circulating system or you don't have a 24-hour circulation, you have a two-speed pump. Even on the two-speed pumps, you can program them. So you can program them to run 2 hours at a time, two different times during the day. You could go 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours. You could run 24/7. There are some people, like on a pool, at the beginning of the year, they'll run it 24/7 on high speed just to get that water circulating in the pool so you get enough turnover rate to be able to get all of that water through your filter media so you can clean up that water. Yeah. So the circulation, if you run into any problems, then start circulating more because that's going to filter that stuff out of there. If you ever get so I've had this note on people that have 24-hour circulations, they'll get the notification that it says increase your filter time on the iCare. So what the iCare is actually recognizing, people go, I filter 24 hours a day. How can I filter any more? Well, you also have what's called a cleanup cycle or your main jet pump you can turn on for a short period of time. iCare is actually recognizing that even though you're circulating 24/7, the iCare might have floated into a dead zone where that water's not getting turned over. And by you running your jets just for a short period of time, you're moving all of that water to the point where within about a 10-minute period, you're turning that water over 2.5 times in that 10-minute period. So at that point, that's all iCare is asking you to do is to get that turnover rate, increase it.
so yeah, it's a big deal. Stagnant water will not stay clean, and you, you know that's I've been telling you I've been writing a book, and one of my titles seriously was going to be "Clean Your Damn Filters." That was literally going to be the title of the book. It's not what the title of the book's going to be. However, if you guys think that's a good title, let me know. But "Clean Your Filters" is the biggest chapter in the whole book is clean your filters. The second biggest chapter is we're talking about circulation. Though if you don't have those two things, all the rest of it doesn't matter. None of the rest of it matters. So make sure you've got that going on, and then you can go back to all the stuff that we talked about, which was monitoring, sanitizing, balancing, and prepping the hot tub. So that's all a super big deal. If you guys got more questions, now's the time to do it because we're gonna follow up on these and see where we land. I gotta say shout out to Frank, awesome info. Thanks for watching. Kayla, if I'm not using my spa for a few weeks, do I still need to check and balance the water? And I think she's talking about the iCare there.
Yep. So if you're not using it, you still have to take care of it. So with the iCare, obviously, it's going to send you those notifications accordingly. And if it calls for you adding a sanitizer, you would go add a sanitizer. If it calls for adjustment, you need to go make those adjustments. So just because you're not using it doesn't mean that you stop taking care of it. You may have to do less during that time frame, but it doesn't allow you to not do it. Now, let's say you were going to go on vacation and you're dealing with a hot tub. One way to get longevity out of your sanitizer is to allow the temperature to lower because sanitizers are eaten up by hotter temperatures. So by lowering the temperature, then you could lower the temperature. But if you're using it on a if you're not going on vacation and you want to turn it down and then turn it up and turn it down, there really is no benefit in that scenario because it takes so many BTUs to raise 1 degree of water no matter how you're doing it. And then when you want to go use it, it's not ready. And then you got to wait for it. And then because you have to wait for it, you're probably not going to use your hot tub in that case. So if you're going on vacation, lower the temperature. If you're not going on vacation and you're just kind of in a lull of using it because you're busy, just let the temperature be adjusted according to what the iCare tells you to do.
So again, if you just listen to the iCare, it'll tell you what needs to happen. Your amount of chemicals that you are using will probably go down. So okay, I already answered that question. DW, good to see you, DW. It says, what happens if my iCare is showing low levels for many hours on end before it returns to normal ORP levels? Are my batteries going bad?
So the only way that I would truly know is if you sent me a share code so I can see what you see. Um, and you also want to make sure that your timestamp, so there's a timestamp on your iCare that tells you when it last tested. So if those are in intervals or you're losing Wi-Fi connection and then it's coming back and then it's giving you some of the readings, that could be one of the scenarios where it's not telling you to dose. So until I were able to see your share code and see what you see, that would be a hard. I just don't want to make something up and say this is what it is. I would want to see more on what she's seeing. But again, it takes four tests in the wrong direction for it to tell you to go dose. So if during that time frame there was one that went high, that's you know going if I was talking about the sanitizer, if all of a sudden it went high, but then I had three that were low, it's going to wait for that fourth one before it's going to tell you to go dose something.
So
So you have
again,
to send me a share code.
so DW, there's an email up. Um, Email up higher in the info at Ideal Water Care is where you want to send that. And then just if you go to share my iCare, there's either a QR code, but by the time he gets it, he's probably going to want just the number. So just send him the number. There's a QR code and then there's an actual number. If you send him that number, he can get in there, he can look, and he will point you in the right direction for sure. My guess is you don't have a bad battery. I think you got something else going on there. Richard, Maddie B. How does the eye care decide whether I need to shock or sanitizers? At times, my brain says, "Oh, it will tell me to sanitizer," but I was wrong. The eye care says add shock.
Yeah. So it's going to look at how quickly things are dropping. So the more rapid they're going to drop, the more apt it's going to tell you to shock. Again, the rule of thumb in our industry is go shock every week. The reality of it is that's not a scientific measure. So iCare will look at those readings and say, okay, it's your sanitizer is becoming um, less effective or inefficient. Well, that's because your total chlorine and your free chlorine are at too high or too much of a differential. And so in those scenarios, it'll tell you to go shock. So on my hot tub where I've got saltwater hot tub, um, I I might shock once every 6 to 8 weeks. That's all that it's required. So again, it's our industry says to do it once a week, but they're also trying to sell a bunch of product. So if you
Right.
do it weekly, then you're going to use more product. You don't, if you don't have to do it, you don't have to do it. So iCare will recognize and tell you to do it accordingly. So hopefully that answers your question. But you don't, people don't have to do it as often as they believe they need to.
Right. And it's, you know, and what it's saying is when you're shocking a hot tub, the whole purpose of it is you're taking the bad chlorine or the bad sanitizer in the water and you're turning it back into a good sanitizer. That is why you shock anything is you break apart those molecules. And the iCare is saying, "Hey, you got plenty of good molecules floating around in here. You don't need to shock it." And I would tell you on my salt system, I very rarely shock it. I'm with you, Jim. Maybe 8 weeks, or if I'm having a huge party or the 4th of July and I had 65 people over, that type of thing. But I really don't. If I and especially if I follow the eye care handled that party. I mean It told me exactly what to do after that party. It was pretty impressive. I'm not gonna lie, I did hit the boost button before all the kids jumped in, but
Yeah.
it was coming. So, we got Kayla's got a couple more comments. She says, "Sounds like I might have to give that hot tub scrub purge a try because my tub's in dire need of a DCR." Kayla, yes, and yes, and yes. So just use the tub scrub. It's the best one out there, and you will be singing its praises. I promise. And then she also says, cleaning your filters is like changing the oil in your car. Yeah, yeah, adding gas and keeping air in the tires is important. But if you don't have oil, a clean filter it'll all go downhill. Uh, I think it's bigger than adding, uh, changing the oil in your car because I think you need to do it more often personally. Because I don't like
Mhm.
that analogy. I'm going to be honest because I want you to do it once a month versus once every 3 to 4 months. So, I think we got through it all. You got anything you want to add?
Um, just the fact that it's not as difficult as what a lot of people believe it to be, and it's about consistency. It's when you have your highs and lows that you run into more of an issue. If you just do a few things, a little at a time, your water will stay better managed. So it's just about consistency. Whether it's consistency in testing, consistency in your sanitation, consistency of your balance, it truly is about not letting it go extreme. When I look at in-ground pools as an example, and in cold weather climates where they have to go winterize it, it's always, they winterized it and the water looked okay, but then, weather turned, and by the time they go open it up in the spring, it's a swamp. And it's a lot more difficult to go clean up the swamp than it is just to add a little bit along the way. And I know in a pool that's winterized, you're not going to go add a little along throughout the winter. But if you could, when you open it up in the spring, it'll actually look that much better. So
And
just doing a few things a little bit at a time. Again, I can tell you, like on our saltwater system, I literally have that running, and I add soft skin spa once a week. That's all I do. I'm not adding all this extra stuff. And the more people believe that, oh, the more stuff I add, the better. It actually makes it more difficult because the more stuff I have in the water, the more it becomes saturated. The more saturated it is, the less your chemicals actually do.
so I have the best
So
description for
less is
that.
more.
That I just so people can understand it. So let's say you're a bad guy and you're wanting to get. So I'm a bad guy and I want to get to Jim. I want to get that cup of coffee out of his hand. So I'm gonna go get that cup of coffee. If the room is empty and I run across the room, I tackle him and I get that cup of coffee. I can do it way easier because there's a plenty of room for me to get around. Now let's take that same room and let's fill it with chairs and tables and kids' toys and dogs and a truckload of gravel and whatever else you can possibly think of, that's going to slow me way down to get to Jim to tackle him for that cup of coffee. So if you think of the chlorine as the good guy and all the bad stuff that's in the water as, you know, that bacteria that he wants to get, and then all the other stuff you're adding is the stuff that is filling up the room. So that's exactly what's happening. And you got to keep the clearer you can clean that room, the better your chlorine or your sanitizer is going to work.
Yep.
You
Nice.
don't like my analogy.
No, I do. I mean, I'm not drinking coffee though. That's the only thing. I'm
Okay,
drinking
that
NOS.
risky. But
No, it makes sense. I mean, the more stuff that's in your way, the more difficult it is. And TDS or stuff in the water is stuff in the way.
so, and again, every time you add a tablespoon of chlorine or every time you add shock or something like that, there's a lot of calcium fillers in there. And if you're buying the cheap stuff, there's even more. So it's a
Hmm.
big deal. So, well, we have gone way over on our time, so you guys were awesome. I appreciate everyone being here today. And again, you guys can check Jim out at idealwatercare.com. He's definitely around to help you guys out and with anything that you would need. Any of the products we talked about, all the links are in the show notes. You can definitely check it out there. And it was great seeing everyone, and we will talk to you soon. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.